Hello everyone, here's an update to my scenario, Memoir for fourth scenario from the Bagration campaign I've been working on. This is the first scenario of the southern part of the campaign. Each campaign consists of 6 separate scenarios, and this one is on Bobruisk. What you see here is the end of the situation at the scenario, and it's a Russian win with 17 to 13 medals. The Russians also have, as you can see here, 7 objective medals, which is better than they've done so far. And what really won the scenario for them is that they played a behind enemy lines card. They destroyed a Russian unit. It was a unit that moved from here to here. Then battled with 4 dice and destroyed a full German unit, and then moved again 3 hexes, moving into the first town hex of Bobruisk and the second one, taking over 2 medals, so also reducing the German medal count in the process. And of course, that's allowed by the behind enemy lines card, which ignores terrain movement restrictions, not battle restrictions, but that didn't matter in this case. Excuse me, the Germans were actually pretty close to winning the scenario. A couple of times they were at 15 medals, maybe even 16. I think they even had 16 at one point, but then the Russians took over a medal objective, which of course gives the Russians 1 extra objective medal, so victory medal as well, and very often there's still a unit on it, so that's 2, and the Germans lose 1, so that's a net difference of 3 medals all of a sudden. But that's intentional. That's the design of the scenario, and in fact, for most of the campaign, that's how it should work. The Germans start almost every scenario with a various number of objective medals in their control, and so that they actually have a chance to win the scenario, and obviously it signifies the Russians taking longer than they did historically to achieve the gains that they did. Of course, Operation Bagration was not a campaign that the Germans had, realistically speaking, any hope of winning, so that's one of the balancing mechanisms built into this campaign. The Germans were actually pretty successful in many ways. They destroyed lots of Russian units, as you can see here, lots of infantry units, in fact, and supported infantry. In some of the scenarios, the Russians dealt with the German left flank, which you can see here, pretty quickly. They only start out with 3 units here, and especially an assault for the Russians on the right, so assault right can deal with all those 3 German units on the German left flank in one go. But the Russians didn't have that card. Perhaps they could have or should have done some things differently. That's also always debatable. But the Germans did pretty well. They didn't even roll fantastically, but well enough, and they had lots of pretty good cards. Forgot what they're called, but the card that allows you to attack with 1 unit on in each section of the board, and also a couple of times that card that allows you to attack with 2 units on each flank of the board, section of the board, I should say. But flank as well, that's again a different card. Then you can attack in the middle, but you can attack on both flanks. So they did pretty well. They eliminated lots of Russian units. That doesn't give them anything, and neither should it, I suppose. The Russians didn't care too much about suffering casualties during World War II. That is, the commanders and the higher command didn't really care about sacrifices as long as ground was taken. And finally, one thing that actually stood out in this one as well, this one has been reduced, but it was at a strength of 3, but then it got counterattacked and reduced to 1. But they did actually kind of break through with a number of tanks. That is breakthrough. At least they got pretty close to the edges. The Russians could have exited a unit as well, but that's usually not something they want to do to score victory points. I'm still thinking of whether I should tinker with that to symbolize a real armored breakthrough and exploitation. On the other hand, it's better for them to gain objective medals, what I could do is make it count as an objective medal if they actually manage to. That might be something fun to if a Russian tank unit exits between these exit markers here, to give it an objective medal for that, because otherwise they're not very likely to do that, because yeah, why would they in this particular case? It doesn't grant them much. But there are actually already quite a few special rules in this scenario, apart from all the special units, which I wouldn't call special rules because they're existing rules. But there are a number of special rules here as well, as there are in many of these campaign scenarios, especially the next one, which is going to be called from Obliteration to Oblivion, which is about the Minsk encirclement from the south, so coming from Bobruisk to Minsk. That one has a couple of special unit rules as well. And this one, of course, had a special rule called hold to the last man, which meant that any flag rolled against the Germans actually counts as a hit because they were prohibited to retreat. Yeah, so I think this one should be pretty much finished, even though there have been definitely more Russian wins than German wins. The Russians have come pretty close to losing several times. The only thing I'm still really thinking of, as I said, is whether or not I should. The exit hexes are fine, but it's probably not necessary for the Russians to squeeze out a win that way, and most of the time they would and should prefer taking objective medals instead. So what I will definitely still consider is to make any Russian tank unit exited actually count as a objective medal. That might be fun and historically accurate. In fact. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed, and see you on the next one.